intense, personal, empowering.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Brave Files podcast. I'm your host, Heather Vickery, and you are in for a treat today. This is one of the most fascinating conversations I have ever had, not just in the over 200 episodes of the Brave Files, but in my entire life. Today's guest shows us that it's never too late to learn a new skill, and that skill may be creating a killer algorithm based on a personality test. Yeah, you're going to have to listen to find out more. Or maybe that skill is finding the gift and freedom that is associated with forgiveness. All I can say is that my conversation with Nechama Robinson is one of the most unique and enlightening conversations I've ever had, and I'm really excited to share it with you. From abusive relationship to relationship coach, Nechama Robinson is one-of-a-kind brave. After years of a failed relationship or many failed relationships, Nechama was well equipped to create a personality-based conflict resolution platform based on a personality test that she invented. This program is called UnConflict, and it helps people all around the world discover who they are and how they fit into the world. Nechama shares her story of how she developed this revolutionary algorithm and the hardships she went through to get there. It is unique, folks. It is, but it's fascinating. So let's get to it. This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show. Hey folks, welcome back to the Brave Files. I am joined today by Nechama Robinson. At the age of 23, she went from an incredibly strict religious family into a marriage with a man who was verbally and emotionally abusive, and later came out as a closeted gay man. Her marriage lasted for 11 years because Nechama was terrified to live on her own. Gradually, she built up the courage to leave and begin experiencing life for the very first time. She's now the founder of UnConflict, a unique approach to personality-based conflict resolution, and the host of the Speaking of Humanity podcast. Such an interesting human being. Nechama, welcome to the Brave Files.
Really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yes, we have worked hard to get here. We had tech issues, and we've been very patient. So thank you for sticking with it. I'm glad to have you here. Let's set the foundation a little bit for those who are listening. I mentioned that you'd come from a very strict religious background. You'd gone into an unsafe, unhealthy marriage. Can you give us a little bit about your background and sort of what led you to that moment where you chose to experience life, like actually experience it?
What's really interesting is that I grew up perceiving myself as a feminist, and I was a feminist actually because I was in a sort of modern religious community.
So you were in a modern Orthodox Jewish family. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That really the community I was in, the culture we were part of, really empowered girls. I went to a co-ed religious school, which was really considered groundbreaking at the time, because for the level of orthodoxy for it to be co-ed was pretty, my class had a total of 28 students. So, small school. And I was very much empowered in the classroom. I always felt empowered. Most boys were intimidated by me, actually. So I didn't, it's not that I grew up I would never, if you had said to me at that point, oh, well, you end up in a marriage where you just feel completely disempowered and just powerless and just lost and all, whatever I felt, and stay, and you would stay in for that long, I would have said, no way, that's not going to happen to me. I wouldn't do that. I thought of myself as being much, much more aware. And I think it's very complicated. I think it's very complicated.
Yeah. How old were you when you got married?
23, I think. Yeah.
What led you to making the decision to get married?
I had zero dating experience. The school I went to was sort of more religious. So my parents, my home was modern Orthodox. My mom wore pants. She didn't cover her hair. You know what I mean? Like very not what people think of as the super strict. But we did observe Shabbat. We did observe the holiday. So it was observant. But really, both of my parents, neither of my parents grew up religious. And both of them are free thinkers in the sense that, they're both my parents. My mom passed away, over 10 years ago, but about 15 years ago. But
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but both my parents were were independent thinkers, so it wasn't about just following things for the sake of it. My mom was not thrilled that I decided to get married. I had no dating. So basically I had no dating experience. The school that I went to, there were some kids in my class who were less Orthodox, who were dating, with parties. I mean, I think they were sexually active. Some of them are, you know what I mean? But that wasn't sort of condoned by the school, obviously. And I was in the religious group. There were those of us who were the religious kids who weren't, dating and all that. I very much, I love school. That's the thing. I love school. So I felt very comfortable. Like, yep, that's what I want to do. And I want to be religious. And I only want to date to get married. And that was not where my parents were not into that, but it was the school. And I kind of was picking that up. So it so happens I had undergraduate. I went to Brandeis. After high school, I went to Brandeis. And someone I met there, a girlfriend, just someone who I knew, ended up transferring from Brandeis to University of Toronto. And then she used to take this bus, at least at the time. So she was on this bus and she saw this guy who was wearing a kippah.
I do. Word. For those who don't, it's I guess I would call it a little beanie head.
People call it a beanie head cover, but it's for
yarmulke, kippur,
yarmulke, kippah, yarmulke, exactly. And so she knew that, obviously he was Orthodox. And so one day she approached him and she said, I have a friend. I mean, it was so bizarre.
It's just like trying to set you up. I found the Jewish guy. I found the Orthodox Jewish guy. You got to meet him.
Exactly. I know I have a friend and she's really, would you want to? And so believe it or not, okay, talk about a sign of the times. I'm 57 years old. So that gives you an idea. It was quite a while ago. I was like, 22, whatever at the time, 21, 22 at the time. We mailed by snail mail audio tapes. So we're talking cassette tapes.
That's kind of awesome, though. Instead of like letters, you get to hear each other's voice.
We wanted that more because in those days, to call from US to Canada was super expensive. I mean, of course, there were no ones. Super expensive. So, but we wanted sort of talking was more natural. And so we'd have music in the background and he had this music in the background, Kitaro, this artist who's an Asian artist. And we were both into this sort of Asian, Eastern perspective a little bit. I don't know, like religion, Orthodox Jewish, but sort of with an Eastern sort of philosophy. So, he had this guitar playing in the background and it was romantic, he was just talking and then I would get that. It was like an hour and a half long audio cassette tape. Okay. That tells I would get it and it would take maybe a week for it to get back. I don't even know how long it took in the middle, a week to 2 weeks. And then I would, get his and I would record my own and then send it back. I mean, we're talking Stone Age. I mean, we're talking like, kids.
That's okay. Yeah. So it sounds like it seemed very sensitive. You really wanted to get to know one another. You wanted to build this personal relationship and you got married.
Exactly. So here's the thing. Still, to this day, I can have a better intellectual conversation with him than I can have with 99% of people.
So you still have an active relationship with your ex-husband?
So the culture that I grew up in, Orthodox Judaism at large, is a naturally judgmental culture. There's, and I don't even mean that it's not necessarily with negative intention. Judgment just
Mm,
means deciding. I'm making a judgment that you're good, that you're bad. That's even if I make a judgment that you're good,
sure.
it's still judgment. It's like I am judging the situation. It's not what I
Mm,
conclude. The fact that I'm engaging in that process of sort of assessing and determining, you know, some kind of value or, you know,
right.
I grew up in a very naturally judgmental culture, and I was comfortable with it. I naturally judgment came easy to me.
Sure. It didn't feel weird to you. Yeah.
To me. And one of the things I've learned, I'll say the hard way, and I mean various things by that, is that there's a joke that I actually say that years ago I would say, if you asked me years ago if I would rather be right or happy, I would have said, question. Of course, I'd rather be right. Okay, that was my mentality, and that speaks to the culture I grew up in, which very much goes
Yes.
to personality. So it was
Yes.
just that was natural to me. It just didn't feel. I felt nothing out of sorts with that.
Would you still say that? Is that still your answer?
Oh no, 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 no. That's what I'm saying. Not at all. Not
Oh,
at all. Not at all.
yeah. Good.
As I've gotten older, I've learned the hard way that that's not. It doesn't. That's not gonna. It doesn't work. I mean, it's just when I say that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not how I want to live. It's not who I. It's not who I am even. I mean, it may be
Yeah.
who I am. I kind of. It depends to what extent we have a choice about who we are. I mean, to some extent, it is. It is. It's very natural to me. But it's not who I want to choose to be. Certainly.
Yes. I love that. I love the message that it's not who I want to choose to be because we are where we are because of where we've been. We
Yeah.
do turn out to be who we are because of all of our lived experiences, because of the way we were parented or what we've gone through, the traumas, all of those things. They're valid, they're real, they count.
Yeah.
However, we do reach a point where we can say, but for the rest of my life, is this who I want to choose to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so then take us to the moment or moments, the space in your life where you decided you didn't want to be in a verbally and emotionally abusive relationship and that there had to be m- more or something different or better. Like
Yeah.
clearly, these were your own words to begin experiencing life for the first time. I didn't make those up for you. Those were words you shared with me, and they really resonated with me. So one of my and I've people who listen to this show have heard me say this a handful of times. So by now, if you haven't read this book, y'all, just please go do it. But one of my favorite lines is from Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime,
Oh, I
where he
love
says,
that.
we can't dream of things we've never imagined. And so obviously you imagined that there was more to life than this. Can you tell us about that moment?
I mean, I'll say that, I grew up feeling good about my childhood. You know what I mean? It's not that it was perfect, but I felt good about it. I don't know that moment happened for me the way you're saying it. What I will say is that it was sort of something that happened that was the last straw. That sort of, how with addicts, it's sort of you have to hit rock bottom. And there was a rock bottom for me, which on the surface people might say, oh, that's so minor. Like, why would that make all the difference? But there's something about something being the straw. You know what I mean? So my relationship at the time in my marriage was a nightmare. We were sleeping in separate rooms. We never spoke. You could slice the tension in the house with a knife. I mean, it was extreme. And I still thought I can live with this. I mean, that's what.
Mm,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. But what I decided to do is I thought, okay, I need to start making money. And up to that point, I had an undergraduate degree, I had some teaching experience, but the opportunities just whatever. I didn't even learn to drive actually till I was in my mid-30s. I had a fear of driving, and I didn't anyway. So I was very sort of sheltered and very afraid to really venture out. And I was like, I need to start making money. What can I do? And what can I guarantee work? And I somehow found out what's so ironic is that growing up in the Orthodox community, I never felt like both of my parents, my parents anything related to sexuality was simply never discussed. So I didn't have any hangups about sex. I just didn't know anything. It was just like, it was,
Right. Right.
so I didn't have any positive or negative influence around it. It was just nothing. And whatever I saw on TV, whatever. And, so I thought I have to start making money. So what I ended up doing is nude art modeling. Because I was looking at different things. I don't even know if it was Craigslist, I think was around then, where I looked at Craigslist for jobs, for gigs, whatever. Somehow I came across art modeling and I looked into it. It's totally a legit thing. It's not, it's not weird.
Right.
If you're comfortable being naked, you can look like anything. You can be
Sure.
any size, shape. It doesn't matter. It's for art classes and art studios and artists who are looking to render the human form. They like whatever your natural body looks like. Old, young, it doesn't matter. So I, again, at that point, I did. By that time, I was driving, and I was relatively comfortable driving. Again, I had gigs at different colleges, art studios, because they would post, I forget where or how exactly. It wasn't on. I don't even know, because it wasn't really on. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, would find these gigs, and I would get gigs, and I would go, and it was fun. It was I actually enjoyed it. But I did not want my dad to know, because I thought that he wouldn't. He's an Orthodox Jewish guy, dad, and I just didn't think. I thought it would be weird, for him to know. So I told my husband at the time, who I was not, we were like not talking. We had it was like two roommates in a house, housemates who didn't talk, who were enemies. There was nothing. Okay. And I just wanted to make sure, but he worked for my dad. So I told him, don't tell my dad that I'm art modeling. Well, my dad is someone who likes information. And if you give him information, sometimes it can get you, points or whatever, get you. So my husband at the time, in true form, told him.
Of course.
And it was something that was like, okay, it's nothing to do with him. Like, there was no it was sort of something that, like, up till that, everything I could sort of, explain or justify in my mind, which sounds so bizarre, but, somehow I was like, okay, like, I guess he's not, I don't know how I justified it. But when he did that, I was just like, no, that crossed the line. Like, I had my line in the sand might have been really far out, but I did have a line.
Yeah.
We crossed it. And I was just like, okay, you've, gauntlet thrown, whatever the phrase is,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at that point, I decided, you know what, lean in. Because at first I was like, okay, so let me say this. At first I actually went into what I'm sure would have been called a clinical depression. I'm sure I would have been diagnosed as a clinical depression.
Probably, yeah.
I did not, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't eat. At the time, my older daughter, who's now my older daughter, was 7. And if it weren't for her, for knowing that I needed to, I was her mom, I probably would have died of depression, to be completely honest. Like, it really, we had crossed the line, but my first reaction to him crossing the line was like, okay, I don't want to live. Like, it was that was sort of, or like, I have no motivation.
Because you didn't know how else to live, right? This is all you'd done. Yeah.
Well said. Exactly. Yeah. In my adult life, certainly. And so I ended up, because if it weren't for my daughter, I just would have let myself, and this is really where I think this was probably the true moment of, I got a bravery, if you will. I got more support than a lot of people get to come to that moment. So I'm not saying, oh, I was so brave, but sort of the story.
You can own your bravery with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I gave myself a week, and I basically said to myself, if you, it's still very emotional, actually. I said to myself, if you are not moving in a different direction in a week, then you need to attend. There was a New Age store that was, I don't know, like 20 minutes away. And they had all these workshops, a lot of free women's circle type things. And I was driving, and I had been driving, again, but somehow that was like more, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was having my own whatever's about driving. And I was like, and so that's what had kept me from already going there. And I was like, okay, you know what? You've been wanting to do it. And if you're not feeling better in a week, you're going to go. Like, I looked and saw one of their groups, which was like a healing women's circle. And I was like, you're going. No excuses. Like, if you are not feeling better in a week, it was like, I think it was like a Thursday that I said, and it was a Saturday that was the thing, a week and 2 days, whatever it is, you are going to that group. You're just going. That's it. And I was not feeling any better. So I got in my car and I drove to the group, and there were like 7 women there. And we were just sitting around the circle, and everyone was sort of saying why they were there. I looked emaciated. I mean, I hadn't eaten in a week or whatever. And I'm sure I looked I'm sure my color was I'm sure I looked gray and emaciated. I mean, it was just, I looked like I was about to die, And the women all went around the circle, and I, explained why I was there. And then for the entire rest of the group, they all focused on me. And they went around the group, and they each gave me a blessing. And it was kind of something I can laugh about is that, again, now I'm spiritual, not religious, but at the time, so I don't know, people know this, but Orthodox Judaism is very Jesus phobic. Like, you don't say the word Jesus. You don't say the name Jesus. You don't talk about Jesus. You don't reference Jesus. You make no reference to the New Testament, to Jesus, anything. He was a heretic. He was blasphemous. Whatever
Right.
the, hand signal, And what was, I laugh because it was sort of, I don't know, it just somehow, I think, captures a lot for me in that moment, is that especially some of the women reference Jesus, and internally talk about, again, the judgmental culture that internally, it really bothered me. It was like, don't bless me with Jesus. It was just like, I didn't express it because I was like grateful, but inside I had that. And it was just, wow. It was something that I also could look back at and recognize in myself, again, that right versus happy place, of just like, wow, like that was so important to me at the time. Like, literally someone referencing Jesus was significant to me. Like, that was a value for me one way or the other. Like, it's just, wow. It was just a wow for me. It was really kind of realizing, the very specific perspective I had, that really, people have that perspective. I'm not criticizing people. I think that spirituality is as personal as sexuality. I know religious people who are amazing people. I know ultra-Orthodox people who are amazing people. And I know ultra-Orthodox people who I wouldn't trust with my toenail. And I know completely not religious people who are amazing people. And I know completely not religious people who I wouldn't trust with my toenail. So I just, it's not about that. It's a tool. We use it, people use it, it's a choice. Again, a choice. Sorry, I'm not saying sexuality is a choice. I'm just saying that it's personal. Like, it's just personal. It's just like, I believe it's as personal as sexuality. I think you have to really honor and respect that each person's spiritual journey is just, you can't dictate it to them,
Yeah, I completely agree. So you had this moment at this women's circle that was both desperately needed and wanted, and also really uncomfortable, and probably had all sorts of other feelings that came with it.
Yes.
And you left there, and what happens?
The one blessing that I carried with me, and I remember that really, that was like, to me, that was truly what I could take into my soul. And she said, and I think what was interesting, because I actually think she was one of the people who did reference Jesus, and I think that's why it became, but I'm not sure, but I think so. She said, you are reaching an oasis in your long journey. And I remember those words, and it was like her words came true, it was like her words came true. And so that's why I didn't help your question, but I can, let me just say, so what ended up happening is, at that point I went home, and it gave me, it was sort of like, at that point I had given up. I had no internal resources to sort of even think about moving forward. Whereas that gave me that internal sort of something to work with, like just something that I could pull from. Yeah.
That gave you, what I'm hearing you say, and it ties into one of your 3 words, is that gave you
Hmm.
what you needed to empower yourself enough to break away.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you've been working to empower yourself ever since then.
100%. That's well said. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good for you. Now, at what point, this is not a story about your ex. It
No.
is, we can't speak for him. We don't want to speak for him. It's not all that relevant.
Nope.
But you did share with me, and we said at the opening of the show, that later he came out, which was, I've come out and it was really hard. So I have to imagine that it was as equally as hard for him. And people do a lot of really hurt people. People do a lot of really shitty things when they're
Totally.
hiding themselves. So no
100%.
excuses. But was that before or after you divorced?
Oh, it was before we divorced. I mean, you want to hear an intense, and I know it's not about him, but let me say this. He loves the Bible, and he believes that being gay is, I don't know which negative word he would attribute to it, but some negative word, a lot of judgment. And he had a lot of self-hatred, and I think still does. You know, I think he's worked through some of it, but
Does
he
he live
literally,
as an openly gay man?
no,
He
he
does
still
not.
does. He went through a few years of sort of attempting to find a relationship, but then he found that it's not what he really wanted either. You know, he's just complex. He's complex. But so I'm just going to say that what made it for him, again, this is where I say empathy for other people, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people can't understand. I mean, he was so verbally and emotionally abusive. I could say things that you would just be like, "Are you effing kidding me?" Okay, that you don't completely hate him, like, but it's not about that. Like, I think that every single one of us as a human beings, we are struggling. The world is the problem, not people. We're put in situations. I sort of give the analogy. I say, if you gave a 5-year-old a machete, you wouldn't be able to blame that 5-year-old if they hurt themselves and other people.
Absolutely. You gave them the tool.
Exactly. I feel that all of us as human beings, the circumstances, the resources or lack thereof, that's what we're handed. We're handed a machete, without a sheath on it. Like, we're just handed something, and then it's like, okay, do your best now. Like, well, I'm 5 holding a machete. My best is going to look pretty messy. I mean, it's like,
It's pretty shitty. Yeah.
yeah. So for him, I'm just going to say I have empathy for him, because I can only imagine to feel he loves the Bible as deeply as he is gay. Like, these two are equal, and they, in his mind, there are some people who can do those together. He's not one of them. He does not believe they can belong together, and
That's
each of them
too bad.
goes to him. So again, it's just like,
yes.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I'm not religious. I know lots of people who love the Bible who are gay, but that's everybody's individual journey. So, I'd love to chat about the concept of UnConflict. But before we do that, it sounds to me, now maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like, as you retell at least your experience in your marriage, that you pretty actively wanted to avoid conflict at all costs.
Oh, not at all.
No,
we fought. Not at
you
all.
Fought. Okay.
Oh, I'm someone who naturally my whole life, my older daughter has actually described me as, I'm a Taurus, and I think I'm very Taurus, and she basically has said to me that the way I am is sort of like, oh, let's go fight in my fight garden. Like, that's fun,
Okay. But is it a fight garden? Is it like, this is the place we fight, we don't fight the other places? Is it a garden you go to? Or is every place open for fighting?
I like fighting. I like when I say fighting. I mean, now I don't like fighting, but conflict does not. I'm not at all conflict averse at all.
Okay. And conflict is a word that people have very strong emotions about. I I do not avoid conflict. I am not conflict averse. That doesn't mean it always feels good, but I'm not afraid of it. But so what is UnConflict?
So UnConflict is how I pronounce it. It can be pronounced different ways. Is the application of a personality algorithm, a very sophisticated personality algorithm that I developed over a 10 to 15 year period.
Okay.
There are 9 personality types. I'm going to say them to you. You don't have to memorize them, but you'll hear a pattern and then it'll give you a reference point for what I say. Okay. So social explorer, social change maker, social connector, ideas explorer, ideas change maker, ideas connector, physical explorer, physical change maker, physical connector. So you being a social explorer means that your 2 bodyguards are social change maker and ideas explorer. Okay. So what I look at everything from a strengths-based perspective. I see personality as a toolbox. Okay. So every toolbox has basically at least one superpower. So the superpower of your core personality, I consider that the essential leadership personality. Now, any personality can lead in its own way, but what I mean by that is diplomatic leadership. So you have, if this is right for you, and you can tell me if it's wrong, but you have the ability to go into a situation, and there's various skill sets that are involved in that, but go into a situation and know how to configure. A lot of people trying to do something, okay, mission, job, whatever it is you're trying to get done, you're trying to reach a certain point. You intuitively, you have a sense of how to navigate yourself and everyone else in the situation for what I call the triple win. A win for each individual, so they feel they're where they want to be, a win for the team, for the whole group, so it's getting what it needs, and a win for you as the leader. Okay. Now, some things that go along typically with that personality type. And again, it's your core personality, which because of the nature, because it is a leadership personality, will tend to always be relevant. Someone has a core personality that's naturally more of a follower personality, then the bodyguard personality may sometimes take the lead. In your case, that's less likely to happen. So some things that are involved in that is that micromanagement is not your happy place. Don't micromanage me. I don't want to micromanage. Big picture, vision, like you're all, that's where you want to focus. Big picture. Now, your 2 bodyguards, one is social change maker, like it sounds. Basically, the essence of that personality type is compassion and kindness. So that's a priority for you. Now, it can be pervasive, means it's always in the background. It can be circumstantial, meaning it just comes up. What I suspect with most social connectors, maybe, at least half, like it's a common thing that their core personality, social connector, pretty much is always working to some extent hand in hand with a social change maker. There's always some awareness of, how compassion and kindness are sort of being, playing out here or not playing out here or should play out here or whatever. Okay. But there might be certain situations where it comes out even more. Okay. But that's kindness, compassion, there's a side. Now, the other bodyguard is ideas explorer. People with the ideas explorer core personality are very intense. So intense artists, Van Gogh, people who are intensely creative, intensely spiritual. The art they create is not something you hang in your living room. You see it in an art gallery and you spend hours talking about it intensely, right? That's the kind of art, deeply spiritual, in just a very grappling with existential issue. Like they're just deep, very, very, very deep. Typically more than half the time, majority of the time, predominant amount of the time, social connectors keep that part of themselves extremely private. Even people who know them in their personal life will often not have access to that part of them. And there are a few reasons for that. One is that their core personality as leaders, their energy is just literally while they're sleeping, there are people pulling their energy. It's like wanting to sort of pull from them resources. Like it's just, so they need that place to recharge because yes, it's hard for them to find another person who can sort of hold the space for them, because the space that they hold is so sort of grand, if you will, that to find someone who can hold the space for them so they can recharge that's not going to be easy, right? And so they sort of need to have their own place that they protect with their life, they super private, that's their own recharging place. And usually that comes from that deep side of their personality.
I was going to say, is that why I go on solo quarterly retreats 4 times a year for 5 days where I don't talk to any other humans?
Bam, bam, bam. Exactly what I'm saying. Now, there are, and I do think it plays in. Okay, so let me say this. Pervasively, you keep it very private. Now, circumstantially, in your podcast, you are very real. You're just like that is so you have a place in your sort of where you reveal that part of yourself very circumstantially. So when you are holding the space, that you are very just cognizant of. It's like it's in flow, but it's in flow within your guidelines. Like you very much have set the boundaries of it, so that within it can flow freely. You can then feel safe to bring in that aspect of yourself that's vulnerable. Again, you also have, you're very much setting the boundaries. Like, okay, this is about you, it's not about me. It's sort of like you're not sharing too much of your own person. You know what I mean? It's sort of a very specific configuration for it. So that's the overview. Okay, that's the general overview. If you want to vet it further, then there are two ways to do it. So the way I look at it, if you want to measure the validity of a scientific system, there are two things. It needs to predict accurately, and it needs to problem solve. So you can vet me further doing two things. You could either say, okay, I was in this situation. What did I do? What would I do? And I don't know. And I would tell you based on your personality what I think you would do. The other would be to say, okay, and again, only what, obviously, if you're comfortable, I don't expect, but I have the situation I'm dealing with within myself, something that I'm sort of stuck in or with someone else. And what would you recommend? And then again, I never ask people to share anything too personal. One of the benefits of my system is that it allows me to get to someone's core truth without them sharing anything that feels too vulnerable at all. I don't need to know their deepest, darkest secrets to understand who they are and how they're processing things. So that's the benefit. So again, you can, and then I would say it to you, and obviously if I say it to you, you wouldn't have had time to, but you could say, oh, that sounds like something I would or wouldn't do, or it sounds good. So I really encourage people to vet me, to vet what I do, because I
love that.
I am brilliant at what I do. I am terrible at a lot of things, like marketing. I am so bad at marketing. I literally cannot, it's like, I just can't, it's, no, nix, but I'm really good at what I do. And that's one thing, your bravery. I think one of the ways that I own my bravery is to say, I own what I am effing brilliant at, and I own what I effing suck at, and everything in between.
It's brave as fuck. It's brave. It is. I see that. I honor that.
So that's where I'm like, I am so fucking brilliant at what I do. I really am. And I want everyone to know it. I am.
How did you develop this? How did you create this? Because it's pretty cool. I mean, you hit me 2 questions. So you guys couldn't hear the 2 questions. And I think the reason for that is because Nechama wants it's private, and you answer those questions. She doesn't want you to problem solve yourself. She doesn't want you to diagnose yourself. She wants to do it for you. And I assume you're going to tell folks how they can come and find out what their personality type is. But 2 questions, and it was spot on.
Wow. Thank you. That I always am honored when, when my work is validated. And I really appreciate that. Like it really.
How did you create this?
I went back to school at age 40 to earn my master's in counseling. During, Myers-Briggs personality system, studied there. Decades prior, a friend of mine was very much into the Enneagram. And no matter what the personality system, I was very hesitant, sort of, no, because to me, the idea that the number of personalities in the world can be reduced to a number that I as a human being can even think about and contain in one idea is offensive. I'm very much an individualist. Ended up having a conversation about 15 years ago when I first moved to the Bay Area with someone. He mentioned the Enneagram. I'm like, yeah, I know about it because my friend had been really into it. He's like, well, then you don't understand it. And he sort of explained that it does account for individuality. We had a 2-hour conversation. I've never read a book on the Enneagram. I've never taken a course on the Enneagram. Okay. But at that point I was intrigued. And what I started to do, because my brain likes that kind of information, is I started, anyone who would indulge me, who I'd meet people in the supermarket, and we would start talking, and I would ask them, like it was just random. And I would kind of try to get a sense of their personality type. And then I started blogging about the Enneagram. It's an old blog. I haven't blogged in it for years. People still go to it. It's ironic.
So you're blogging about the Enneagram, but you never read a book about it. You didn't know anything about it.
Correct. Correct. I
Okay.
just had a
Okay.
conversation. My brain likes this kind of information. Like I said, I'm fucking brilliant at what I do. Anything else?
Okay.
I'm not even, I mean, not anything. Obviously, I'm functional in certain, most ways in general, but I'm just saying, like anything that require, anything that's, there are plenty of things I'm really bad at. So, so then I started blogging about it. I wasn't doing it on social media. Wasn't really, no one was reading it. I was doing it for my own fun. Okay. Then I would talk to people and say, yeah, I'm blogging about the Enneagram. And then people would say to me, yeah, I took the Enneagram test and I'm this type. Enneagram goes by numbers. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
It goes by numbers.
I am a hardcore 8. So
that's super interesting, and it will relate to what I'm going to say to you. Okay. This is very interesting because I'm going to challenge that. I understand.
Well, I'm an 8 or 3, but they're tied, but you're supposed to pick the one you most identify with. And so.
Oh my God, that's so powerful that you said that, because I have to tell you that I was telling my daughter, so now I have a 12-year-old, and I was telling her that you are an 8. Just from a little speaking with you, I felt that you were an 8 before we spoke. What I've learned about my questions, this has happened a few times, they are better than I am. I have an intuition. I'm usually very good. But there have been times with this set of questions, especially, where I think something, I ask the person, and they answer differently. Okay. And at first time that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is so off. My questions are really. And then after talking, guess what? I was wrong. My questions were right. I'm like, bam, that's what I'm looking for. I want the questions that are better than me. So that is so interesting that I thought you were an 8. So I understand why, because one of my blog series had to do with how their questions are not accurate and about how they confuse 3 and 8 or 2 that they confuse. So that exactly confirms my point. And I'll explain what I totally get what you're talking about. And I'm telling you, so do you know the other Enneagram types, or you just know 3 and 8, or do you know other types?
I know that I don't have them all memorized, but I have a general awareness. Yeah.
So my personality type, which is on the Enneagram, a 5, is now rightness is more important than happiness. I'm always right. I don't, okay. So I don't know if you know that, but that's okay. Now, so I'm not plagiarizing, by the way. I am not plagiarizing. Anyway, people would say to me, so like you, hey, I took the Enneagram test and I'm this personality type. Well, most of the time I would think, no, you're not. You're different. And depending who it was, I would share with them or not share with them. That's what I thought. And finally, I would write these series of posts that were basically, I would take a topic and then I'd have an introductory post, and then I would have a post on that topic related to each Enneagram type. And then I would have a concluding post. So I would have somewhere between 10, 11 posts for each topic, right? I ran out of topics. I was like, what the F am I going to, I don't have any other topic in my head. So then I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I am going, because I know all these people are taking the Enneagram test and they're wrong. It's called an indicator, and they're wrong. There are many indicators to the Enneagram. So the Enneagram, the term Enneagram is not copyrighted. The Enneagram Institute is copyrighted. So the Enneagram Institute is basically the industry standard that's accepted for Enneagram studies. Okay, they have courses, they have book, whatever. Okay. So they have all these, it's not just there's various tests you can take on there. And that was 15 years ago. Now I'm sure it's even more, But I decided, here's what I'm going to do. I paid $10 for their most comprehensive test. It was called the Riso Hudson. It was called because Riso and Hudson made this test, okay? Created the test. It was called the Riso Hudson Enneagram Indicator. I took this. And the way they do it, you basically have like 100 and some statement pairs, okay? So statement pair, there's 2 statements. You pick the one that's more true for you. And then afterwards, there's like a code thing where you're like, oh, which statement that was for which personality? And then you sort of count, right? Like the more statements that you've checked off for each personality, that's how you go. So they're you understand? So you sort of have the one, and they say you're basically guaranteed to be in your top 3. Now, first of all, that bothered me because I'm like, top 3 out of 9 does not impress me. Does not. Does not impress me. And guess what? My personality type that no one would debate. Okay, the friend who was into the Enneagram, when she first told me about the Enneagram, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to buy into any personality system. She's like, that's what a 5 would say. Like anyone who is looking at the Enneagram and looking at me is like, I'm the textbook 5. I'm a textbook 5. Okay. 5 came out 4th on my list. Okay. Not even top 3. So at this point, all due respect, I mean, this is all, this is what I say. I don't shy away from confrontation, though. So
you just want to take on the Enneagram. I mean, I noticed that you had 9, and my thought was, oh, that's like the Enneagram. Not.
Let me finish. So what I ended up realizing is there were 2 things that had always bothered me about the Enneagram. One was it seems so arbitrary. You sort of, each personality type is like this arbitrary cluster of personality characteristics, right? Right. And then you're like, why? Why are you the performer? Why are you like, there's a million other archetypes you could pick from. Why those 9? Like, what is that? So I don't like the arbitrariness, and I don't like how it's used mostly, which is like, I'm going to tell you what your weaknesses are and help you fix them. Like, that was offensive. So the whole thing about it was offensive. Now, what's interesting is that the Enneagram has its roots in 4th century mysticism. And so I believe.
And the Christians have really, they really want to own it.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about Jesus.
Okay. Now, mysticism was not, in those days, I think it was probably maybe more Jewish. Again, that's all politics, whatever, but not the point. The point being that I thought, I bet that broken telephone. I mean, it's had many variations that have taken it in the wrong direction since 4th century mysticism. I'm going to get it right. Okay, I laugh at myself as I say this.
You're like, I can do better.
I own my truth. That's what I say. I'm not pretending, to not. I'm owning my truth, and I'm also laughing at it. Like, I'm being like, yeah, it's obnoxious, and it's me. It's just how I think. Okay, you like it, you don't like it. Okay, so I'm like, okay. So first of all, I was like, I need to figure out what the building blocks are, right? What the existential building blocks are, because I'm all about the existential truth. If you have a personality system, it has to be rooted in existential truth, right? Or else what's the point, right? So I knew that it worked to some extent, but first of all, it didn't always work, and I needed to get to the root of it. So now we're talking, one thing I say for my personality type, I say kind of, again, laughing or whatever, thinking is an activity. For my personality type, thinking is an activity. So at that point, once I realized that, I basically spent, weeks, months, thinking. Like, for me, I sit down and I think. It's like someone sitting down and doing something. I'm sitting down and I'm, doing that.
Nechama, what is your personality type?
So in my algorithm, I am an ideas change maker.
All right. So that connects for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what I did was I came up with 2 building blocks. So the 2 questions that I asked you, each one corresponds to an existential building block. That's what they correspond to. So if you listen to my personality, the 9, and if you let me, I'll say them again, because so basically there's social explorer, social change maker, social connector. Okay. So that's now then there's ideas explorer, ideas change maker, ideas connector. Then there's physical explorer, physical change maker, physical connector. So the 2 building blocks are, one is, are you social ideas? Are you social, ideas, or physical? Yeah. And the other one is, are you explorer, change maker, or connector?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the intersection tells me, and I try to use terms that sort of, when you hear the personality type, it means something. You get a glimpse of what it is. Now, again, because of bodyguards, there's a million variations on that, but it gives you the general idea. So then the other thing is, let me say this, people who know the Enneagram, if you take my 9 personality types, they're relatively, in a very broad way, they work in so many different ways. They work very differently, but they're generally parallel, except for this. The first and last are swapped. So if you were using Enneagram numbers to refer to my personality algorithm from first to last, you would be 9, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Because based on the personality building blocks, the 9 is the social explorer and the 1 is the physical connector. Which is, you see by that order. So it's fundamentally, I'm not plagiarizing. I did use the Enneagram, and I'm very open about this. I did use the Enneagram, although I've never read a book. I promise, I never read a book on it and never took a course on it. But my understanding of the Enneagram from a 2-hour conversation and then just applying it by talking to people, basically, so I've sort of used that as a stepping stone to sort of configure, to create this algorithm that I feel is gets much more to the root of the actual existential reality of human identity, while also being a tool that the way I design it, it's to be used in an all strengths-based, empowering, positive way, as opposed to saying,
Mm.
this is what your weakness is, I'm going to help you make up for it.
So I'm certified in positive psychology, and I've done the VA character strengths, and that's a lot. You answer a lot of questions, but what they teach is don't spend your time trying to get better at the things that are not your natural strengths. Do all of the things from your top 5 strengths. Let those lead you.
That is so, I love that. And that is actually very, very consistent with my approach. I mean, obviously they're specific, how they list strengths is going to be different than what I do.
Yeah.
But the concept is exactly consistent with what, with what I do.
So once somebody meets with you and you ask them your magical 2 questions, and I would it be safe to assume that one can do that on your website?
Yeah. So let me say this right now, my branding, the story that I started out with very much connects to my core passion, which is resolving conflict in relationship. Now, what I've sort of known for years, and I actually tried to sort of do this years and years ago before my algorithm was developed, and it didn't happen, but I'm coming full circle. I believe that the best way to be able to do it is when people are getting together is actually ascertaining compatibility. Obviously, after the fact, for sure, it's helpful. But for me, in terms of what I love, I'm like, that's been so, I could talk more. I mean, not today, obviously, but that's something that I could personally talk more about in terms of compatibility. Like, I think so many people, this is going to sound very sort of simplistic, and I don't actually mean it as a negative thing, although it sounds like it, have wasted years of their life with someone they're not compatible with. You know what I mean? I think there's something about that. There's something, I mean,
like you did that.
Well, that's why I say I'm great. See, this is where I say I'm grateful for every moment that was in that, because I'm who I am now because of it. So it's not that I regret it, but I still wish that I had the choice, and there's some people who don't even get an opportunity to come out of it in the way that maybe I have. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's really something that is pivotal for the world. And so something that I am truly passionate about, which if you go to my website so you go to unconflict.com and you go to the menu, go to matchmaking. People can, I just launched, basically the way I'm kind of describing it is a matchmaking, God, I just forget the word. Matchmaking agency database, because I don't quite call it a matchmaking service, because it's like that's it. I don't want it to like it is that it's a matchmaking agency database. So it's an agency in the sense that people sign up, and then when there's someone who's a match who comes on board, then I then let them know. So normally I've just set this up. So normally once it's rolling, it will be a one-time $60 sign-up fee. One time, that's it, not yearly, not whatever, just one-time fee. Basically, where you fill out the questions, and that allows me to keep it, the way the algorithm is, allows me to keep it top of mind. So anytime someone comes in, I'll know, when there's a match. Now,
so like a match, like a dating service, like a dating matchmaking.
A matchmaking match, a personal match.
So you're gonna best match.com. This is gonna just blow it away. I think so.
I think it should. But let me say this right now. So yes, and I love that you said that, by the way. Thank you. That was amazing. What I want to say is that right now, and I don't have this code on the page itself. I have it on different social media, which people, since I'm not good at social media, probably not a lot of people see it. So if you feel like you can share this with people. So code FIRST 60, capital letters, FIRST, number 60. If they put that when they fill out the questionnaire and they go to the bottom and it says $60, but then it says coupon code. If they put in the code FIRST 60, it goes down to 0. So the first 60 people who do code FIRST 60, it's no cost at all. because that, to me, I shouldn't even start charging until I have a strong enough database. Like that would just be not ethical. But it also means it would take more time, which is why it's free.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, okay, get it for free,
Yeah.
and just it
Okay.
doesn't cost you
All
anything.
right,
Just do it.
Go. Listen, guys, go get it. Go get your code
Yeah.
free 60 for
So
your
that's
matchmaking.
it's unconflict.com. Go to the matchmaking page, fill out the questions, and filling out the questions might take you some time. We don't have a save function, so you'd have to do it all in one sitting. Maybe you want to look and then make no, come back, whatever, but just know that. And then after at the bottom, after you've answered all the questions, you put in the code and it waives the $60 fee and you're in.
All right.
And if you want to mention, I have a podcast called Speaking of Humanity. Basically, this season 2, I'm interviewing, and that you can do that. You can do this and or the sign up. Like they're you could do one or both, one or the other or both. Okay, but this is if you want to be interviewed, if you want real time feedback from me, where we talk about your personality, we talk about the personality of the person I think you would be most compatible with, then you actually get you can choose to be interviewed on my podcast. And the way you do that is by sending me a message, again, through unconflict.com. There's a contact us page. Just send me a message, say, hey, I want to be on your podcast.
Now, is the podcast also a matchmaking tool, or is it just a conversation?
It's a matchmaking what?
Is it a matchmaking tool or just a conversation?
It's a conversation, but it helps people because each interview is around an hour. It could be between an hour and a half. People walk away from it getting a sense of kind of who they might want to look out for and the kinds of things that may have been barriers to them finding their ideal match. And so it's a podcast. If they get an interview and they're sort of automatically in my database, because here's the thing, if I have an interview with them, the questions, if I do not do an interview with someone, I have that page of questions that I need for them to answer in order for me to know who's compatible with them. Okay, so it's their personality question, but other questions too, to be more specific, because the 2 questions give me the baseline, right, of your core. It's like 80% there, your baseline and your 2 bodyguards. But compatibility, if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear that if you have 2 people of the same, technical personalities, like 2 social connectors, would not necessarily be compatible with the same other personality. That goes into individual stuff. Okay, so that's where the algorithm is. I apply it, but that is further questions that I know that aren't written out anywhere. You know what I mean?
Okay. I think it's really fascinating, and I could see so many uses for it. As a success and leadership coach, I could see it from a coaching perspective. I could see it from a corporate management perspective.
Yeah.
Lots of different ways. Yep. And I'd love to ask you all of those questions, but we are far past the timing that we were supposed to be at. And there's no wrong answer here, is the matchmaking the only way people can work with you? If they wanted to know more about their personality type and utilize it as a leader, as a parent, anything like that, is there a resource for that?
No, absolutely. They can totally reach out to me and do it. They can totally reach out to me. Again, message me through the contact form on my website. Absolutely. We will set it up. I don't have an automated schedule on my website for various reasons. It's not logistically practical for me. But I will schedule it. You send me a message. We will email back and forth. We'll find a time. We could do Zoom and or phone if you're not comfortable with video. I'm very, very flexible with that. And I totally am happy to do sessions. And I have sliding scale. I'm someone who has always cared more about the mission than the money, which has not always served me on a practical level. But if I can help you, I mean, this actually goes, if I can help you, then I will do my best to help you. We'll figure out a price that's manageable for you, a cost, whatever rate that's manageable for you for consulting. Yeah.
And that is how you give back to the world at large, to the community at large, is by supporting them.
Very well said. I mean, it is how I give back. It is. I mean, yeah, it is how I give back. I mean, I think that times when I've been just out and about meeting random people. So give back, not just people contacting me. Mostly it's not people actually contacting me through my website. It's just people who I happen to, which now, again, just logistics, not so much, but, where I just literally meet someone and then have a conversation with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sort of give whatever, support them in whatever way. But yeah, but basically that's the idea. Like yeah, I give back by
Okay.
supporting people in ways that they can't really get other places. Yeah.
In other places. Yeah. Okay. So Nechama, tell us, all of our listeners, what might the result be if they're so curious about this, but they've already got a partner or they're not looking for a partner or whatever, and they message you and they want to set time aside for you, what might they expect as a result of that?
Do you mean what does a session look like, or what's the result of a session?
What's the result of a session?
Depending on what their goal is. So if they have a conflict that they're looking to resolve, let me say this, I'm going to divide conflict into two broad categories, okay, with existing relationships. So two very broad categories. One is our relationship at its root serves us, and there's this thing that keeps getting in the way, and we need to get it out of the way. Okay. Other category, our relationship at the most fundamental level does not serve one or both of us. Okay. So if I can help determine which of those it is, not that I'll tell you which it is, but I'll help you come to your own conclusion about which it is. Either way, I can help communication so that whatever needs to happen can happen in a more peaceful way. Whether it's conflict resolution or whether it's a separate, some kind of, separating, pulling, creating distance, can happen in a peaceful way. If someone is coming to me and saying, well, again, there's some place I'm stuck within myself, then help them recognize their own strengths, all from a strengths base. I will not come and say, this is why you've been having these problems, because this is what's wrong with you. Never, ever. It's about, you have these amazing strengths. Life has sort of forced you to apply those strengths in ways that at the time were absolutely necessary, no longer serve you. So that was then, this is now. Here's how to re-embrace those strengths with your current needs and your current just life and your current perspective and your current experience. Okay. So it helps. Essentially, I think in a word, I would say it makes moving forward feel more accessible.
That's a really lovely place to close our conversation.
Yeah.
It's really cool work. And, I am a big fan that words matter. And I believe in looking for the good and finding the positive, not in a toxic positive way. We have to be honest about our truths and our feelings and all of that.
Exactly.
But this is the same concept of like leading from our strengths. Like, okay, all of these things suck really bad. They're really shitty. What's in it for me? What's good? Exactly. Let me work off of what's good instead of off of what's bad. And
100%.
Yeah. So I just think it's really cool, folks. Go and check Nechama's stuff out. So fascinating. Listen to the podcast. I am super grateful to have you here with us. It's just really been fascinating. Thank you.
I am super, super grateful to be here. This was amazing. It was an amazing experience. You're amazing. Like, I have to say, like, you're amazing. You're very cool. Felt very, very cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Folks, I hope that you enjoyed it. I want to know what resonates with you. Make sure to reach out. As I tell you every week, you can follow us on Instagram. We are the Brave Files Podcast. Send me a DM. Let me know what's connecting, what you're out there doing, how you're choosing bravely. So much of what Nechama shared with us here today can be coexisted beautifully with my Brave method, which we all know is my creative strategic approach to problem solving, dreaming, designing, and building and living a life that you love. And I have a book about it. So if you are curious, then visit vickeryandco.com/store to get your copy of Fuck Fearless, Making the Brave Leap. You can also find our Create Brave cards there, as well as a whole slew of very cool Brave AF, Grateful AF, and Resilient AF swag. Thanks for hanging out with us today, folks. We will talk to you soon. This is Heather Vickery, reminding you today and every single day to go out and choose bravely. Bye, y'all. Hey, friends, I want to share something really exciting with you. We already know you enjoy listening to podcasts because you're listening to this one, but I'm also betting you enjoy audiobooks. And hey, listen, if you don't already enjoy audiobooks, then it's time to check them out. That's why I'm really excited to share Libro.fm with you. They are an incredible new platform for listening to audiobooks. And by choosing Libro.fm over other audiobook services, you are supporting a local bookstore of your choice and investing in your local community. Libro.fm offers over 150,000 audiobooks via their primary platform, which, by the way, they built with love and from scratch because they're a small business also. They even offer bookseller recommendations for great audiobook options. You can sign up right now via www.vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. That's vickeryandco.com/LIBROFM. And when you do, you'll get one free audiobook of your choice, and the proceeds will go to your favorite local bookstore. Now, check what I just said there. You're going to get a free book, and the proceeds are still going to go to your local bookstore because Libro.fm makes sure that their booksellers get paid even when they give a promo to customers. I've listened to over 20 audiobooks this year alone. I especially love listening to memoirs read by the author, and it feels great knowing that all of my purchases support my local bookstore, The Book Table, in Oak Park, Illinois. Libro.fm. The same audiobooks, the same price, but a completely different story. Check them out right now at vickeryandco.com/LibroFM. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Maybe you've had this thought and then quickly shut it down because who has the time? Or you don't know how, or gosh, it just all seems too hard. If you have something to share with the world, we want to encourage you to get your message out. The world needs to hear it. Did you know that 50% of all homes are podcast fans? If you've ever wondered about having your own podcast or how it can increase your business or get your message across, then please join me and the other experts from the Podcast Power Academy for our monthly free Q&A session. It's called So You Want to Start a Podcast? This casual live conversation will help you understand how podcasting can be a great decision, why now is the best time to get started, and how to get into action with it. Visit podcastpoweracademy.com to learn more. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories of people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes and full episode transcripts, or to get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we would love to know what you think of the show. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching. Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music was created and produced in a custom collaboration with Matt Lewis from ML Creative Consulting, a boutique firm dedicated to helping clients identify their unique sound and amplify their brand with custom delivered soundtracks. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to everyone on Team Brave, from our producers, associate producers, copy editors, writers, and support team. Special thanks to Molly, Mary, Kim, Sabra, and Sabrina. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.